Do you remember? Do you remember? I remember all those years.
Oh, I remember. Oh, remember. I remember. Oh, I remember.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Do You Remember podcast. My name is Adam Anwar. I am your host, and today I'm going to be talking to the bass player from the band Knox. I'm going to be talking to Sam Birchall.
It's not really a face that anybody could trust.
Are you alright?
Yeah, man,
Thanks
I'm
for
not
having
too
me.
bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you enjoying self-isolation?
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Going a bit crazy, but luckily I've got stuff like our topic today to keep me busy. And today we're going to be talking about the Smiths. So, for those who don't know, Sam, give everyone a brief synopsis of what the Smiths are.
The Smiths, obviously, are a band from Manchester, popular in the 80s. The main two members, Morrissey and Johnny Marr, basically they're well known for the lyrics and the music, and I think they're kind of seen as the pinnacle of indie pop kind of music, and they've inspired a lot of artists, and me myself personally as a musician, just one of my favourite bands of all time.
Nice one. And when did you first hear about the Smiths?
Well, I mean, as a lot of people, I suppose you're always influenced from music from the people around you. And I remember me and you, we were speaking about this with your brother and with the Smiths, and then me, it was kind of my dad who was always really interested in the Smiths, and kind of just basically showed me a lot of the songs. And I remember when I was about 8 hearing You Are the Quarry, so Morrissey solo stuff, but I think it was mainly when I got to about 12 or 13 that I was listening to Arctic Monkeys a lot because it was more my era. And then from there, I just kind of wanted to listen to more, shall we say, indie music. And obviously the Manchester scene was quite good for that indie music. And then it just went from there. And obviously got hooked on it straight away from when I started properly going into the Smiths early stuff and then all the later stuff as well.
So, just for a frame of reference, you were born in 96, was it?
96.
Yeah, so this album came out in 86 that we'll be talking about today, The Queen is Dead. And like, it just shows like the lasting impact that this album has in the band as the Smiths, that even a decade after it came out, I mean, you were just born a decade after and you became a big fan of it, so it kind of shows like the strength of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the one thing for me that maybe some other bands in the 80s don't have, that I think that the Smiths have kind of really stood the test of time, because a lot of people, when you speak to them about 80s music, they think of that kind of, cheesy synth sort of stuff.
Sure.
And I think with the Smiths, they definitely don't have that. But I think because the main parts that's so good about the Smiths are the lyrics, and I feel like even now some of the stuff that Morrissey's writing about with his words, they do relate to people's situations still today.
Definitely, they've got that kind of timeless element about them, and the Smiths are the kind of band that like they've really got what's the way to say it? They've really got like a cult following, but it's not so much a cult following anymore because it's kind of a bit more mainstream and a bit more in the wider sphere. But it's really interesting. All these years later, yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry, no, yeah. Well, I was just going to say when you look at like the Stone Roses, with the reunion gig and things like that, I think that in itself kind of changed a lot of people. I mean, I think Oasis kind of brought everyone together with music, and it wasn't kind of one genre anyway for like a specific type of people. Indie music, I think everyone started liking it from there. But if you look at them Stone Roses gigs and how big they were, I think if the Smiths was going to do something like that now, I think it'd be just as big, if not bigger, because of the length of time they have been split up.
Definitely, I think you've touched on a great point there about Oasis, because I can purely just say from my own experience, I grew up on a council estate in Bolton. All I used to listen to was hip-hop and Oasis. Oasis was the only thing that could break through that barrier of hip-hop and what broke through to me. And then after that, the very first two bands that I really got into were the Smiths and the Stone Roses. Maybe because it's the close nature of being near to Manchester, but definitely two really, really strong bands.
Yeah, and I think if you look now with like things like Spotify and Apple Music, where you're not physically having to go buy music anymore, people are more like they're more willing to listen to all sorts of stuff, and they get suggestions, they get daily mixes, and if there's an indie band that come out now, say for instance, obviously like the Cortinas and things like that, then the suggestions are going to be there. And Liam Frey's always talked about Morrissey as someone with his lyrics and things like that, so it's going to keep going to them new generations as music progresses.
Again, another good point. With Spotify, you can be very, very open-minded. In the old days, you had to go out,
Yeah,
you either had to listen to the radio, or you had to buy the music or lend it from someone. It was all a very active thing that you had to do. But now you can listen to music very passively. You can get on
yeah,
Spotify and you can
definitely.
listen to music from all over the world and from any decade.
You said yourself about getting into the Smiths following from some other stuff. So what kind of like what was the first song that you heard?
I can't really remember what the first song that I heard was, but I remember I was in college and a mate of mine who was in my class, Andy, he knew that I only listened to hip hop and Oasis, and he said you should listen to the Stone Roses, you should listen to the Smiths. And then one day I was at my grandparents' house and I was helping him like paint the walls or something, and all my brother's old stuff was like in the loft, and I thought, I know he's got some tapes up there and some CDs. Let me have a root around, and I came upon the greatest hits of the Stone Roses. I think it was called the Complete Stone Roses, and like the very best of the Smiths. I think it was called Volume One and Two. It was some Volume One and Two of like a Smiths Greatest Hits compilation. So I just took them downstairs and I put them in the old stereo downstairs and just listened to that while I was painting the walls, and I just kind of like really fell in love with both bands that way.
Yeah. No, it's similar to me. I think I started on the greatest hits kind of stuff with the Smiths and Hatful of Hollow and things because all the singles were on there, really, weren't they? So I just kind of went from there with it. I didn't probably touch the albums, because I think I don't know, maybe it was just at the time. I think even now, still, people are very selective, just going for the singles off albums or like what they know on a greatest hit. So I didn't properly start like delving, like when people used to have vinyl and things, so you
Yeah.
had to listen to the whole album. I didn't really do that until I was probably 14 and 15 when I started to actually go through the whole albums track by track. So probably quite similar with the greatest hits element. And I think that's probably how a lot of people get into these older bands, and it's not related to your time.
Definitely, I think especially nowadays, if you're going to listen to a full album, you've got to be really, really already invested in the band to want to listen to a full
Yeah.
album. Like you would never just give like a band you've not heard of before like a full listen to just a standard album, would you?
No, but it shows the changes, doesn't it? Because people, that's what you had to do, didn't it? When with vinyl and stuff. I mean, did you miss the vinyl kind of thing?
I did, yeah. I mean, when I first started getting into music, it was like iTunes was already a thing by then. But so what I'd
Yeah.
have to do
Did you
is
have tapes?
I kind of had tapes, but it wasn't really a big thing. The only time you'd get a tape is like I don't know if you wanted to kind of put your own mixes together. But I was really, really at the back end of all that stuff. But like I say,
Yeah, so
I
I was straight on CDs and then iTunes. So
yeah, I already had iTunes as well. Yeah, like about 12, 13, something like that.
you're
So I
not that much
remember.
older than me, really, are you?
Yeah, not too much, no. But I remember I used to go to like just my mates' houses and just say, "Listen, can I borrow this album for like half an hour or whatever?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, of course." And I'd just take it home. I'd rip it to my iTunes and I'd just go take it back. And I remember the very first albums, just to get off the Smiths a bit, I had like um, Doggy Style by Snoop Doggy Dogg, and like that was such a great album at the time. Like that was like one of my favorite albums. And I remember going out and buying. Um, Tupac albums and Public Enemy and stuff like that. Like I say, because at the time I wasn't as much into this type of music or really any type of music besides hip hop. So that's how I kind of got into it. It was
So,
kind of
so
through
do you
albums.
think it was purely just from kind of liking Oasis that you kind of got to there with the Smiths? Do you think if you didn't like Oasis, you might never even bother with the Smiths?
Definitely, they were like a gateway drug in a way. They were the
Yeah,
gateway into guitar music because before that it was literally just like beats and rhymes. That's all I cared about, and like clever lyrics and stuff like that. And I never really took the time to really care about guitar music or like
yeah.
drums
I
and
get that's interesting for me because I was kind of the opposite, if that makes sense. So like I probably only got into rap and hip hop a lot later, and I don't really know what kind of you say Oasis. I don't know what the gateway in between was. But maybe it was like Aerosmith and Run DMC. I'm not too sure. I don't know what kind of transferred me over to listening to rap music. Probably Eminem.
I think it's what we're like we're around, aren't we? So like when I was very young,
Yeah,
obviously my brother was like still living with us, but my brother was 15 years older than me, so like we only really lived together for a short time. But during that short time, he was a big fan of like the Smiths and Oasis and obviously Stone Roses and stuff like that, and bands like The Farm. And I remember obviously when he moved out, I kind of stopped listening to that as much, and then I had some older friends and they were into hip hop, so that I was really, really in my face and obviously in my ears. So that was what I was listening to a lot. But obviously, you was around your dad a lot, and your dad's into a lot of that kind of music, isn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah.
So what was it about the Smiths then? What was it about the Smiths that really appealed to you and made you a fan?
I genuinely, I think at the start it's just got to be the lyrics. I mean, even you know, you look at some of the song titles for things, and they're a bit out there, aren't they? I mean, you just look at, if we're going to talk about the Queen is Dead. I mean, if you look at Vicar and the Tutu, and then there's like the Never Goes Out. What difference does it make? You know, just different songs and stuff like that by the Smiths. Just the song titles already are a bit more eye catching than a lot of other songs from other bands, and I think, yeah, the lyrics played a big impact on my initial enjoyment of the Smiths, and then I think once I started getting into like learning the guitar and the bass and things, I kind of then sort of surely started to appreciate more like the music side of things as well, and I appreciate how good of a guitarist Johnny Marr actually was. So I think I think overall it was the lyrics that first kind of sold me to listening to the Smiths. What about you?
I'm not really too sure. I think the more and more that I listened to it, the more I just gained an appreciation for it.
Yeah,
And you mentioned the lyrics, and one of the very first lyrics that ever stood out in my mind was 16 clumsy and shy. I went to London and I was about 16 at the time. And I remember, like, I mean, every 16-year-old is like shy and clumsy to an extent. So every 16-year-old could kind of relate to that. So I remember that really like sinking into like my mind that,
I,
oh,
th- I
like
think
what you're talking
something
about.
that I always used to do when I was younger was, no matter what kind of weather it was, as long as it looked a little bit bright outside, I'd probably put my Facebook status as a dreaded sunny day, and I'll meet you at the cemetery gates, just without fail. It's just something that I do automatically.
And just that lyric alone that you just mentioned there, like a dreaded sunny day and I meet you at the cemetery gates, it shows like Morrissey's like strange quirkiness. And if you just
Yeah,
look at that lyric
definitely.
on paper, it looks kind of a bit naff and maybe a bit cheesy. But the way he delivers it and the way that he says it, like you really buy into like him as an artist, but also the
Yeah,
band.
well, what I love a lot of the time is, and not many people can get away with it, is how he kind of he'll even do the same lyrics, you know, like just repeat them again, you know, as another verse, which some people find that quite lazy. And but the way he delivers it and just changes, like adds an extra word or changes how he sings it, I think it's just so strong. And like I said, not many other artists get away with doing that with songs.
Yeah, by repeating it, the way that he does it as well, he kind of brings new life to it when he repeats it. So it's not like he's doing the same thing
Yeah,
again.
you kind of waiting and like, oh no, it's just it's crazy good how he does it.
Yeah, and he's really quirky and like eccentric, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, as some of the noises that he just make, like on this charming man. I mean, I'm not gonna try and interpret doing it now, but like you know the one I'm meaning, don't you? So he's just, you know, not many people could do that sort of stuff, and even the O's and the woes and stuff that he does in between. It's just, yeah, I think it's just brilliant, and I don't think there's many better front men than him.
Yeah, he was really a part of the appeal, wasn't he? Like his vocal range and that kind of, not just the
Yeah, I
vocal
mean,
range, but
it's
the tonal range in terms of what he's talking about. Like, he can be talking about very serious stuff, but he can also just do some outright silly stuff, like some girls are bigger than others. But none of it seems that too dissimilar from each other. He makes it all work and just mesh and flow into
Yeah,
one.
I mean, even some of the lyrics in Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others, when he said from the Ice Age to the Dole Age, obviously that was probably really appropriate at the time, the 80s. And you could even compare that to now, couldn't you? And say it's a similar sort of impact with Brexit and obviously the coronavirus right now.
Yeah, with everyone being furloughed, that's one everyone's having to take at the moment, isn't it?
And that's what I think's that's great about the lyrics of the Smiths, is it's just like, still even now, they're probably impacting on a lot of people's lives. And I think a lot of people, if you look at Smiths fans, say that like you know, listening to the Smiths changed their life, and they all had that kind of similar sort of feels of like awkwardness or angst or anything like that. And I think that was one thing that probably as a teenager for me kind of drew me into listening to them. I don't know about you.
Yeah, definitely. And the way that he's he's quite masculine as a figure, but also he's very tender the way that he speaks. So it's kind of like
Yeah,
it's okay. You can be in touch with your feelings. You can be in touch with like, because obviously like at the time I mentioned Oasis a lot. Oasis are very like, you know, cigarettes and alcohol, and I'm a rock and roll star, and all very just blatant masculinity. Not very. I'm in touch with my feelings. They had a couple songs like, you know, sad song and stuff like that, but the Smiths is all very much like it's okay to be in touch with feelings, but also be that strong frontman and be very like confident in it.
Yeah, it can. It's an interesting point though with Oasis, because Oasis was kind of being about like the rock star, like you're saying, whereas the Smiths is kind of it's just like poetry alongside some jangly guitars, isn't it? Really, and you could take some of them words that Morrissey's got, and they wouldn't look too out of place in a poetry book, would they?
Definitely, he is very, very poetic the way that he does it. And if you, like you said, you mesh that with Johnny Marr's guitar, and that is the complete beauty of the Smiths. I mean,
And
Rourke
I think
and
we should also look at the other two members of Mike Joyce and Andy Rourke. I mean, I think Morrissey said in the past, and obviously their relationship was broken down, but even he said that the Smiths wouldn't have been possible without either of them. And I think Andy Rourke, because obviously I'm a bass player in a band now, I still look at some of the stuff that he does in there, especially in Meet Is Murder and Queen Is Dead. Like, the bass line, and I Know It's Over and stuff. It's just great. I think the whole package of the Smiths, I don't think you got a tighter unit. I mean, you could probably look at the Stone Roses of how tight they are live as a band, and you just think you don't get better than that.
yeah, just I mean, look at Joyce's drumming at the start of this album. The Queen Is Dead. The first thing that we hear from the band really is his drumming, like and it is just a fantastic way to open the album.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing that Smiths did really well was start with a really strong track. I mean, I think on every album, I think you got Headmaster's Ritual and Meet Is Murder. You've got Rush and a Push on Strange Ways and Reel Around the Fountain on the first album. And I think all of them tracks just really stand out and kind of set the scene, for how the album's going to go. And I think Queen Is Dead, probably, I mean, I always toss in term between all of them, but I think that probably is the best track, I think, as a starter.
Yeah, it is a really strong one. I mean, let's dive into that as an opening song. It was fantastic, wasn't it? And just the way that it opens up with that "Take Me Back to Day Old Blighty,"
Yeah.
just the fact that they would use that is just so, for me anyway, it was so like out of left field, and like it just if you showed me that sound at the time and said you're going to listen to this sound and it's going to be the opening of one of the best albums you've ever heard, I'd be like, get out of my face. No way
Yeah.
is this Take Me Back to Daryl Blighty sample gonna be like this huge, but like I mean it's kind of what Kanye West does now very well, taking old songs and like sampling them very well. Not to say that the Smiths are that much like Kanye West, but the fact that they did that, like, it was just incredible.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, if we want to be looking at each tracks, it is just, I think that album, the whole kind of sound of it's just so, I don't know, it's just stood the test of time as well, which I think is great for a band. I think some albums you can listen to can just be really kind of outdated and you can kind of hear some of the lyrics and stuff, but I think with this one, it's just on a different level.
Yeah, it's really a testament to the strength of the band, isn't it? The fact that it is so strong nowadays, and and
Yeah,
some
I
some
mean,
of the
you hear
things.
there is like that never goes out now so many times still to this day. I think I've seen lots of bands do covers of it. Alex Turner's done one, Miles Kane. I think a lot of people appreciate that song, and I think that probably for me is one of the best lyrics that Morrissey's done as well.
I remember one of these like package programs on VH1 about 15 years ago when I was starting to get into the Smiths, and like it was like the 100 best lyrics of all time, and like they were doing like each song one by one, and I think it was either one or two was the Smiths was like one or two with that.
Yeah, no, it's great, isn't it? I mean, look, going back to Queen is Dead as well, though. I mean, some of the lyrics on that, like when it says he broke into the palace with a rusty sponge and spanner. She said, "No, you cannot sing, so that's nothing. You should hear me play piano." It's just great, like because it doesn't even technically rhyme, does it? But it's just the way he
No,
delivers it that it just sounds so, like it just works, doesn't it? And it's
yeah,
funny as well, and I think that is another highlight of the Smiths that people talk about his lyrics being depressing. When people don't like the Smiths, they say, "Oh, that Morrissey's so depressing." But you couldn't get further from the truth, really, could you? When you're listening to him, because a lot of the time he uses humour and he plays on things.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to mention it, saying like the comedy element that he uses, but I said before how tender he is with his lyrics and how you can be in touch
Yeah,
with your feelings, but then he blends it with this very silliness and this comedic nature, but it meshes so well and it complements each other so well. And like the line of like I said, Charles, do you ever crave to appear on the front of the Daily Mail dressed in your mother's bridal veil? it's just so silly, and like the imagery of like Prince Charles in a dress,
Yeah.
in a face veil on the front of the Daily Mail. It's just so silly, but
And
the way that it worked.
I tell you what, doing a song like that at the time, I mean, you look at it now, even with the Royal Family now, they're still kind of seen as a massive thing. At that time, for a band to do that on the second album, the third album, it's just like, you know, it's quite ballsy, isn't it, for them to do that?
Yeah, exactly. You know, everything
I
down for.
think Johnny Marr,
No, go on.
I think Johnny Marr's family actually really didn't want them to release the album as called The Queen is Dead. I think they wanted to name it Big Mouth Strikes Again, but Morrissey was adamant, as he always was, and stubborn on it, and basically said no, it has to be called The Queen is Dead. So I think that kind of even shows then that the band were a bit, you know, the other members were a bit nervous about calling it The Queen is Dead, and obviously it's the title track and it's the first one, and some of the lines, and it's still like, I mean, I wonder if Lizzie's listened to it or not.
I imagine, I don't know. I imagine she's heard it, or she definitely knows of it, but I don't know if she's actually listened. I mean, she probably has listened to it, hasn't she?
Yeah, I'd listen to it.
It's gruesome that someone so ugly should care.
That's interesting that a lot of the band members didn't want to call it The Queen is Dead, but do you know what? Big Mouth Strikes Again would be an awesome name for an album title, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it weren't like they didn't have a lot to choose from in terms of that album, was there? They could have had probably any of the tracks as the album name.
You know, like the power and the strength of all the names is like fantastic. But yeah, as an opening track, The Queen is Dead. What your thoughts on it altogether?
I think it's a brilliant song. I like how it kind of, as it goes along, it gradually develops, and I think it changes quite a lot. You know, from the initial part, especially the bit where it's where he starts singing like "We Can Go for a Walk," where it's quiet and dry, and talk about precious things. I like how that kind of bit then keeps repeating that section, and you know the words are quite repetitive, but it still just kind of works, and you're just kind of in that moment, aren't you, with the song?
Definitely, I think it's a real piece of art, that song, because like, you know, like when one of these painters they paint them, but you can't see what's going on until like it's all been put together. You can see each individual color and you can see all his pieces and stuff like that, but you can't see what it is till it all comes together. I think this track especially really encompasses that, because you've got the beginning bit with "Take Me Back to Dear Old Blighty," the sample. You've got the comedy element of Charles in a veil on the front of the Daily Mail, and then you've got like the tenderness of like the rest of the lyrics, and just the way if you took all those separately, you think, okay, where are you going with this? But then you put them all together, you go, wow, you come up with a real masterpiece there.
Yeah, and I think it also just really shows, obviously, how strong Morrissey's opinions are. That, you know, he's especially back in the day, a man of his principles and what his opinion was, and how we present that. And I think this song, especially because, you know, we all know he's an anti-royalist and didn't have any sort of positive opinion to say about them. And I think it also shows, especially when he sings a line like "Past the pub who saps your body, and the church will snatch your money. The Queen is dead, boys." And, you know what I mean? It's just all of that just kind of shows what he stands for and what he disagrees with and what he believes in.
Yeah, 100%. Very opinionated, very stubborn in his views as well. Not willing to budge. Listen, this is my opinion. You take it or leave it, but I'm going to put it out there, and that's Morrissey all over, isn't it?
And I think it's fascinating because he obviously it got a lot of people thinking, didn't it? You know, and maybe it captured. I mean, I weren't around then, but maybe it captured a lot of how people were thinking in Manchester. You can really feel the kind of northern elements and the northern south divide, probably, because you know to the northerner, it doesn't probably seem that the royal family's got any involvement with how things were going back then, especially with like coal mines and everything shutting down and things like that. There was a big divide, and I think this probably shows like how a local lad's feeling about it.
Again, another great point. That, you know, we're in the midst of Thatcher's Britain here, and there is a clear divide of like, listen, you're the queen of our country, but what are you doing for us
Yeah.
down in the north? What are you doing for us? And you know, that's really encapsulated within this album, definitely. And it's very much a product of its time in that sense, but it's also, like we said before, very, very timeless.
Yeah, Definitely, and I think it just shows now because I think people still do have that same opinion, and of the royal family, and in terms of what they actually do for anything, and what the purpose of them actually is, and it's debatable as to what the point might be for them. And I think Morrissey did kind of he's always got his controversial opinions, but also things that he's probably done a lot of good. With his vegetarianism and Meat Is Murder album as well. Another great point. These are all things showing like his opinion, but he's doing it through music and through his words, and that I think that's a lot of people's fans of the band really kind of bought onto that. I think my dad was a vegetarian for years because of Meat Is Murder, and so was my mum.
Right.
So it's always been how he's presented these opinions and through music, and how people have kind of followed him essentially.
Definitely. Moving on to the next track, we got Frankly Mr. Shankly. A lot more light-hearted song. What do you think of this one?
This is actually one of my favourite songs of the album, to be honest with you.
Really?
I love it. It's a short song, and I feel like it could even be a little bit longer if I wanted to, but it's probably because of the humorous nature, as you've said, that it's maybe not longer. I think I did read somewhere that it was actually about the record producer at the time who actually they didn't quite get on with. I think there was
Right.
with Rough Trade at this point, and I think they didn't actually get along with the manager there. So they ended up leaving Rough Trade and going to EMI for the last album. And I think he actually did write Morrissey some poetry to look at, and I think that's where that line comes from. I didn't realise he wrote such bloody awful poetry.
And that is such a great line as well, because that complete give and then pull it away moment of, oh, I didn't realise that you write poetry. I didn't realise you wrote such bloody awful poetry. And it's just like, oh yeah, I'm really like getting involved with you. And no, it's really bad, really bad. And just shoving that back in your face. And I really love
Yeah,
that.
and do you think that's got anything to do with kind of northern humour? I don't know. I feel like it very much is northern humour, and how we kind of maybe a bit more sarcastic with how we speak and things like that. I'm not too sure.
I think there's definitely an element of that. I mean, it's not just northern humour.
British.
You can say that, yeah, but it is very much that sarcastic humour of that give and then pull it back straight away, and that to make you look
And
like more of a
have you ever
fool.
really heard that many kind of musicians and singers do that before? Because I don't think I have.
No, not. I mean, realistically, the only people for the longest time who put humour in their songs were kind of like parody artists or people who were kind of purely comedic acts. There was some in the
Yeah,
early
it's
days,
kind of like
but
he's got that mixture of like like spoken word sort of stuff, but then he is singing it very melodic as well.
yeah, that he definitely does. He definitely does, and again, it just shows how artful he is. He takes all these different tools, he takes all these different colours that you think they don't really go together in one painting, and then by the end of it, when he's done it, and you look back at it, you're like, wow, I see what you did there. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Right now, one of my favourite songs on the album, maybe my favourite song on the album, maybe my favourite Smith song. I Know It's Over. I absolutely love this song. What do you reckon about this one?
Yeah, I think this one truly is probably a masterpiece. As a song, I think it's one of them that you can I can't not listen to it, especially if I'm flicking through Queen Is Dead. If I'm just not listening to the Smiths for a little bit, which is rare, but if I'm not, then I will automatically just be drawn to that song because I mean, where'd you start with it?
Exactly. There's so much in it, and it's just such a quality song from start to end. Um, those lines of like, if you're so funny, then why you're on your own tonight? If you're so clever, why you're on your own tonight? If you're so very entertaining, why you're on your own? And it's just such a I can't even come up with the words of what mastery he has and putting together these lyrics that kind of bring home the purpose of, yeah, you kind of not all that. Your opinion of yourself is a lot higher than what it is, because obviously clearly other people don't share that opinion of you. Because look at you, you're by yourself right now. No one wants to be around you.
Yeah, no, it's just brilliant, isn't it? I mean, and then even at the end of the song, when you're just getting that repeat of the first line of it, "Oh mother, can feel the soil falling over my head," as you get to the end of the song, he's just repeating that over and over again, and Yeah, it's just you can't even probably describe that. It's probably one of them that just it speaks for itself, doesn't it?
I think this is one of the reasons why some people think the Smiths are maybe depressing. Because if you look at it from a very shallow aspect, if you're listening to those lyrics like "Oh, the soul's falling on my head," this kind of aspect of like someone being buried alive. If you don't look at it past that, you can look at it very shallowly, like, "Oh, I can't get on board with that." But the more you dive down and really listen to the full song as a full piece and really invest in the song, you start to really see its true beauty, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, he's always got that kind of, humor. It's maybe sometimes a bit like dark humor about it, but like you're saying about kind of that this person who he's obviously describing aren't quite as good as they think they are, and that they're a lonely person. It kind of shows that he is using probably a depressing start to it, but like I said, he's kind of building it up, and it's more actually laughing possibly at somebody. I don't know. I think you can interpret it any way you want to, how you listen to the song and how it makes you feel. But I think it is just brilliant lyrically, and I think obviously the music. I think that bass line for me from Andy Rourke is just it's crazy. It's quite it's subtle, but like it just goes through the notes, and I think you can listen to any sort of instrument in the song and just fully appreciate it. Like it's so good.
Yeah, definitely very well put together. And like I completely do not see this as a depressing song. I don't think of it like that whatsoever.
No,
I see it like as like a very artful piece, a very like gently like very poetic piece, and again to show Morrissey's kind of masculinity, but also the side where he's very soft, and you can be in touch with your emotions. I love the line where it's like it's easy to laugh, it's easy to hate, it takes
it
guts
takes
to be
guts to
gentle and
it. Yeah,
kind. That's a real kind of like bit of kind of fatherly advice that like listen, it's easy
yeah.
to laugh, it's easy to hate, but it takes guts to be gentle and kind.
And again, going back to what we've already said and kind of reinforce, it's just that a lot of it has meanings to people who are listening to it, and I can imagine, some people who aren't fans might look at this song and think, "God, that's gonna," I've heard people saying it makes me want to kill myself, but I think someone maybe who is going through like a bad time or something could listen to that and take the complete opposite opinion from it, couldn't they?
And that is always the power of art, and it's kind of the power of media going forward, is that depending on your mood, you can read different things into it, and that
Yeah,
the Smiths for me is very much one of those things. Whereas I look at it as a really beautiful piece, and like this album as an entirety, because I want to see the beauty in it. I want to see it for the artistry, but some people might want to see it for different things, like you say, more musicians. They might want to look at it more musically and the guitarists and stuff like that. You can look at it for wherever you want, and definitely, the Smiths is so layered that you can read so much into it, and that is the power of good art.
yeah, no, brilliant.
Right, let's move on to the next track. Again, another kind of solemn track. Never Had No One Ever.
Yeah, this is probably my least favorite of the album. I still like it, but it's probably not the first pick of the album, if that makes sense.
Right, okay, because I really like this one, especially that first line of "When you walk without ease and on these streets where you were raised." I don't know what specifically he's trying to get out there, but coming from a council estate, I've had those moments where you're walking through the streets that you come from and on a late night and there's dodgy characters around. That's probably not what Morrissey's getting at, but again, this is where you can read so much into his lyrics and you can read so much into the art as a whole. That's one thing that I really read into, and I really appreciated that as a 16-year-old young lad on the council estate. As yeah, that's what this means to me, even though that's not maybe specifically what he means.
Yeah, and I think the music in this song is brilliant, especially just coming straight after. I know it's over. I think I think it's like a kind of synthy part, piano part in the background from what I remember. It's just kind of really ominous, and I think it's just it's so kind of like a bit haunting that it's really good in like the middle of this album.
Yeah, this one really like as a whole, this song it feels to me as like someone who doesn't really fit in anymore. And again, he's talking about walking. For me, anyway, he's talking about the place where he comes from, and I don't fit in anymore. And he says like I lasted 20 years, 7 months, and 27 days. Like I tried all this time, and I just don't fit in now. I'm outside your house and I'm alone and all this stuff, and just kind of like someone who's an outsider of society looking in on society, and that kind of is a theme of Morrissey and himself as his entire career, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and I think, um, yeah, similar to probably I know it's over in how he approaches the lyrics. That it is just brilliant. But I think what's quite different about this one is I think the music really matches up. You know, I think the normally with the Smiths, Morrissey and
Hmm.
Mark kind of like contrast each other with what the lyrics and what the music are saying and how they go approach it. But I think with this one, they're both kind of on the same level with it, and maybe it reflects how both of them might have been feeling when they were younger, or what the song meant to both of them.
Yeah, and it's that kind of feeling of like kind of a lack of companionship as well as we get towards the end of the song. Like, I never had no one ever. I never had no one ever. Like, where he's really hammering down that like this kind of loneliness. And again, it links straight back to the last song where he's talking about, if you're so funny, if you're so clever, then why are you on your own tonight? And I always felt like it was Morrissey's way of saying like, yeah, everyone kind of thinks I'm great, and I think I'm great every now and then, but look at me, I'm lonely at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Right, next up, Cemetery Gates, a dreaded sunny day. Take it away.
Well, I absolutely love this one, and as I said before at the start, it was one of them songs when I was probably about 13, 14. I just listened to, I mean, constantly on repeat. I don't know why, but I just loved it, and I think mainly it was probably something to do with the fact that where my high school was, there was kind of a lot of churches around it, and we used to like cut through it, to get home and things like that, on the walks home, and then it just kind of felt like it was almost like about like my situation in my life, and I love songs that make you feel that you're really related to. Like you said before, we've never had no one ever. I
Hmm.
think both got the same kind of feel from the song, and I think it's quite powerful for me because I just think, like I said, whenever it's sunny, I think of that lyric just because it's a dreaded sunny day, and I just think about it all the time, no matter when it is.
Now, this song to me, it feels kind of meta and very self-aware because it's sort of like, obviously, sunny days in general are kind of linked with happiness and collective gatherings and stuff. When it's sunny, you want to go outside and you want to meet up with people. But Morrissey is saying the complete opposite here, isn't he? He's saying like, oh, it's a sunny day, but I'll meet you at the cemetery gates. And it's kind of, he's talking about how Wilde is on his side, and he's kind of wanting to dive into his world of literature and stuff like that. That's what it says to me anyway, and that's why this song is kind of very self-aware. Is because for the Smiths and for the fans, that's what the Smiths were.
Yeah,
The Smiths
no,
were his version of Wild, and like when it's not going too well, or even when it is going well, and you just want a bit of time to yourself, you can just sit and you can listen to the Smiths, and they are your version of what Wild is to Morrissey here.
yeah, definitely, and that I think that's key with all that you can see that these writers and poets and things like that have had a massive influence on his kind of writing style for lyrics, and I think this song is almost like it probably him at a younger age, kind of planning on becoming who he was in the day. When he's saying about the text that was specifically thrown at him by his friend when he was at the church, and the laughters at the church. Because he's obviously this is maybe his relationship with someone who they've both got a common interest in words, and it probably shows. It's probably a look back, because this is the Smiths' third album. It's probably a look back at how far he's come, and it's something as a memory to him, and it's probably inspired him for the song.
Yeah, it's just great stuff, and again, it has a touch of silliness about it at some points, but like yeah, just it's just it's just a lovely song, isn't it? Because again, the very thought of in general meeting someone at the cemetery gates is kind of a spooky and eerie feeling to it, but it doesn't have that feel in this song. It kind of has a kind of lovelier kind of tone to it.
Yeah, and I think the music really captures that, doesn't it? With the jangly guitar part. I think it's very typical of listening to the Smiths. That kind of this song in particular.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And right, we mentioned it before, and now it's time for it. Big Mouth strikes again. What are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think there's a single song here that we're not saying is great, to be honest. But a Big Mouth, I think, I think if there's any song on this album or any song that the Smiths have ever done that's about Morrissey, I think it's got to be this one, hasn't it? I think this is
Yeah,
very reflecting of who Morrissey is, because I mean, essentially, as we've said, that the controversial opinions that he's had, some of the stuff that he's obviously said in the press at the time when he's asked, I think it all just leads to what this song is. That it's just a phrase, isn't it? Big Mouth strikes again. Do you know what I mean? It's just like Big Mouth sort of thing.
Again, and it's so self-aware. And again, this is the album that is called "The Queen Is Dead," and we just look at like the lyrics: "Sweetness, sweetness. I was only joking when I said by rights you should be bludgeoned in your bed." Because he's wishing death on the Queen a little bit in this album, but now he's saying like, "Listen, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. That's my way of joking around with you." And it's kind of this dark humor, but again, it's all brought away in this very poetic way.
Yeah. No, I think it's brilliant, and I think there's backing vocals on it, the really high pitched kind of squeal, that's singing the backing lines to it, that's harmonising with him. It's actually Morrissey's voice, with the pitch heightened on it.
Right,
But
okay.
I think the actually song credit it is someone else, for some reason, some sort of poetry, I think it was. But no, it's brilliant.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. Now, again, moving on. The Boy with a Thorn in His Side.
Yeah, I love this. This is one that I think I don't listen to often for some reason. I don't know why, but then when I do, I kind of realise how good of a song it is, and I think it's just one of them that a bit similar to Cemetery Gates in terms of the vibes for it, but like I think overall it's just yeah, that I think the music in this one is just brilliant, and I think the lyrics are great in it as well. I think it's them at the best of their abilities.
And there's that line again. All the way through this, we're going to be talking about how great it is and how poetic it is and how this and that. But there's that line where he's like, "Behind the hatred, there lies a murderous desire for love." I'm like, just that line, "a murderous desire for love," is just such a poetic
Yeah,
thing because like the two completely opposite things of murder and love, but the murderous desire for love is just how, and again, it perfectly encapsulates what he means, how someone can just be that desperate for love that they burn for it.
yeah, no, like you said, yeah, it's just the lyrics in that one in particular. I think he just always has them lines that really stick with you, don't they? You say murderous desire to love. I think it's just who comes up with that? Like, how do you, how does he sit there with a notepad and think of lines like that? It's crazy, isn't it? That he's got them ideas, and like going back to the humorous side again. It can be looked at in a humorous way, can't it? That you're not expecting it at all.
Yeah, like a lot of the times when he's singing these lyrics, you kind of feel like he's doing it with like a wink and a nudge or with like, tongue in cheek and that kind of thing. But yeah, speaking of tongue in cheek and a wink and a nudge, next track on the album, Vicar in a Tutu. Now, I just want to say off the top, who, like, what a absolute ridiculous, ridiculous thing to call a song. What a ridiculous thing to write a song about. It makes no sense, but the way he does it, it makes perfect sense. It completely fits in with the album.
Yeah, just yeah, as you're saying there, if anyone else did that, I don't think they'd be able to get away with it. I think it would be labelled as the biggest album filler you could ever seen, and they've just made it up on the spot. But I think with this, it just works so well, and I listen to it often. I really like it. I don't know about you, but I think it's a great song.
I do, and I can really appreciate it from like this kind of humorous side. But again, the way he makes it work, it's mind-boggling to me who doesn't. I mean, as I'm sure people know, I know nothing about music, as you can hear me talking about it now. But as someone who doesn't know anything about music and how bands can do things to make things work, it just baffles me how well they put this together and how well they just make stuff like this work.
Yeah, I mean, I think even like the monkish Monsignor with a head full of plaster, my man, get your files soul dry cleaned. It's just it's just how is that? Is this a topic to then write a song about? Is crazy, isn't it? But
And
it
yeah,
just works, as we're saying, it works so well.
absolutely, I love the line where it's like, "Who comes sliding down the banister? The vicar in a tutu," and
Yeah,
it's like someone sliding down a banister, such a Bart Simpson thing. There's something that you would completely not.
but can't you just visualize it though?
You,
Like
you,
you're
you
listening
can,
to
and
this
it's
music, you can
ridiculous.
just picture the scenario.
Definitely, definitely. Right now, again, it's really strange because when you listen to this album, it doesn't feel like it's taking you on a roller coaster ride. It feels like it's a very smooth journey. But you've gone from this song, Vicar and a Tutu, to the next song, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out. Something that's completely void of humour in one sense, and just completely opposite to Vicar and a Tutu in that sense. But yeah, I don't know how they put these two next to each other, but they made it flow very well. What do you think of There Is a Light That Never Goes Out?
I mean, like, as I said to you before, it was one of the first Smith songs that I really listened to and got into, and I think it was one of them that made me want to learn guitar specifically. You know, like probably like people your age and stuff with
Yeah.
Oasis just wanted to learn Wonderwall. Like for me, this was kind of like the song that I wanted to learn. Like instead of Wonderwall, because everyone was doing that. I don't know what it was, but I just was desperate to learn on guitar, and I remembered having to buy a capo so I could play it because it was you needed a capo on the fourth fret to get it so high as how the song is. And yeah, I think it was kind of strange really because have you ever had that experience when like you first hear a song and then suddenly that song's everywhere?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
happens all the
like
time. It happens with words, or it
yeah,
happens with
well, with
songs.
this, like I was going to I got my friend into the Smiths from obviously really liking them and then hearing this and he was like, wow, great song. And then we was going watching this XFM event in Manchester and Liam Frey was playing and he did a set and at the end he brought Miles Kane on stage and they both sang and it was just like weird, you know, because I'd only just started really getting into it all, and it was just
Yeah,
it all kind of felt like it was designed around like my life was going, you know, be like a Truman Show experience or something. It was
definitely. The
just what,
universe, it gives you what you need, man. It gives you what you need, and like obviously you just heard that
yeah,
song, and then they were going to perform it right there on stage, live in front of you, that cover, and it's just yeah, it's weird how things like that happen.
yeah, and like I said, and I think it's just one of them Smith songs that maybe now as you've obviously listened to so many Smith songs over and over again, like that you might put on the back burner and go and experiment with others. I think when you do go back to this one, you do just appreciate it and think, wow, this is probably one of the best they've done with the lyrics, I think.
Definitely, and I think this was the song that was actually not that number two or number one of greatest song lyrics of all time. But it's a very hopeful song as well. Like the start is talking about being young and alive and driving in your car. I don't want to take you home. You know, you want to spend all this time with that person, and like, oh, it is so hopeful. Then obviously talking about, or even if we die right now, it would be a pleasure to die by your side. It's just a very like hopeful and like very romantic song, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely romantic elements in there, and I think again it's how Morrison was at the time. This is obviously the way that he expresses love and views it, isn't it? With obviously these kind of more life-ending experiences being the kind of sign of true love, I suppose. That if you prefer to do that sort of thing, then maybe that is love.
Yeah, definitely uses that as like a very strong analogy, doesn't he? And like again, the very first line is so relatable right now when we're all in quarantine. But take me out tonight, like oh my god, what I would do to be taken out tonight. But yeah, again, it's a very hopeful like sentiment, isn't it? Like not just now, but in general, like oh, when he wants to spend all this time with that person, take me out tonight. Go on, you know, I want to go where there's music and there's people and they're young and alive. It's just when I'm
Yeah,
trapped
I think it
indoors.
relates to a lot of people, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially when you're trapped indoors. But yeah, almost all.
Yeah, I think right now it probably should be the theme tune for it, shouldn't it? Or at least when we're about to be let out, I suppose.
So I think as a review, we can just say There Is a Light That Never Goes Out. One of the greatest songs of all time. So well written, absolutely fantastic. Moving on to another track with comedic elements in it. I say comedic elements. It's basically all comedy. Some girls are bigger than others. Go.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's very comedic, but I think it's also got some lyrics that obviously are quite like relevant to the times of obviously a lot of unemployed people across, especially the north in particular, being quite affected. And obviously they did say it was the dole days, and this is what he's obviously saying from the ice age to the dole days, which is an early lyric in the song, and I think. Yeah, I think it sticks out. And at the time, I was a lot younger. I didn't understand quite what it meant. And then, obviously, as you get older, it's quite apparent what it means. And again, I think it's another one that now people probably look at in the same sort of way with how they're having to make claims for benefits and different things like that.
Yeah, I actually got some insider knowledge for you here. I know how Morrissey wrote this song. You know, because like before he wanted to be a musician, he wanted to be a tailor and he was a dressmaker, right? And then he opened up
Okay.
this shop, yeah, called Mothers and Daughters, but he only made them in one size and he went out of business. So then he
All
wrote this
right.
song that I have just discovered that some girls are bigger than others, and like, oh, it was a terrible time in his life.
Well, that's pretty interesting, and again, it shows how all of his lyrics are quite like reflective on his life, and he writes meaningful stuff that means something to him, but also probably to a lot of other people out there who are fans of his lyrics on the Smiths.
There you go. But this was always like when I got into the Smiths and when I was like 17 years old, 16 years old, this was always the one that we used to always point to as like, this is such a silly song and like some girls are bigger than others. And if you tried to ever get someone into the Smiths and you played them this first, you'd already lost the battle, I think, because you cannot dive into the Smiths and see this as your first one, can you?
No, I'd agree with that, but I think it works with the album, doesn't it? Similar in the way that Vicar and the Tutu, like you think, how could they get away with that? But I think again the music's brilliant, and I think Ma never kind of ever falters with his music and how he writes songs, and I think it, with different lyrics, it could be seen as differently, but I think even for this, the lyrics do work really well, and I think he's again similar to Cemetery Gates, like mentioning like. As Anthony said to Cleopatra, which is obviously from quite a famous play. I forgot what play it was now. Do you know what it is?
I'm useless with my peers. I'm guessing it's some kind of Shakespeare, though.
Yeah, I think it is. And yeah, as I was saying, I think again, similar to Cemetery Gates, he's always got what his influences are, and he's always, as you're saying, his life experiences, and you know, I think it is a really good song, and it really works with the album. You can't say that any of this album's bad, can you? And,
No, true.
if this is what you look at as the worst song, I think for most bands, it's probably one of the better songs, wouldn't it?
Definitely, and like it can just kind of really encapsulate what Morrissey was like as a person. Like, oh, let's just end it with some girls are bigger than others. Like, yeah, I don't mind being a bit silly on the end, but I love how he has those different parts of his personality, but they all kind of tie into one, and none of it seems out of place.
Yeah, and even at the end as well, which I think he did quite a lot on this album as well, which was interesting. Kind of it's not really a middle eight, but kind of just these lyrics just at the end. The "Send Me the Pillow," the one that you dream on. It's kind of got this effect on his vocals, and he's singing that over again. He does it on a lot of these songs in the album, and I think it's brilliant.
Definitely. And so, what do you think of Morrissey now then? Because obviously he's got this certain persona in the media. He had that thing a few years ago where he wouldn't perform anywhere where they sell meat, and then he completely stopped selling it. And he was cancelling gigs like on the day because he could smell like meat being cooked. And then obviously he's been in support of people like Britain First and maybe Tommy Robinson, people like that. Maybe not specifically those, but that kind of sphere of politics. And I mean, what do you think of him now? Do you think his media persona's affected his legacy?
I think to be honest, I think he's very close to that. I'm not gonna lie. I think it started a few years ago. With things like the Falklands and things. That he's just kind of, is maybe his music and his his music career's kind of not been put on the side, but he's not very relevant now. Maybe I think he's kind of just been saying comments, and you don't know if it's to try and sell the album. I don't know. I can't imagine he needs the money for that reason, but is it to stay relevant? I'm not too sure, but I think the last few years you kind of I, I dread every time I see that like Morrissey's done an interview or an
Yeah.
article's come up, because I don't want to. I don't want. It's kind of getting to that point where he's just digging this hole that he can't seem to now get out of. I think didn't he say something about the whole Kevin Spacey situation, saying that like these 14-year-old boys should know what they're doing and things like that, and it's just you kind of cringe a little bit, don't you? And you just don't know why he's doing it, and you just want him to shut up.
Yeah, definitely. It's for me, it has ruined his legacy. It's not completely ruined him, but it has ruined his legacy
No.
because before all this, he was seen as such like an idyllic figure. He was seen as someone who was like very right on. He had all these like we say, these two albums, The Queen is Dead and Meat is Murder. He had all these kind of views that were kind of right on. And
I think animals look to humans for protection.
and of course humans lead them into slaughterhouse, which is, to me, it's just like an image of leading children into a slaughterhouse. There's no difference.
You felt like he was doing them for the right reason, not eating meat and then being anti-monarchy. But the older he gets, and sometimes it feels like he's trying to be controversial, but you kind of feel like that's not really Morrissey's way, that he would need to try to be that. He could just be himself and everyone would adore him just for that.
I often find that people who go on forever and ever and ever, that it's not really the same.
Yeah,
But
I don't
yeah,
think even Morrissey knows what he's saying half the time when he says it. So yeah, it's hard for us to analyse what he's going on about. But going back to his legacy, I think with the Smiths, because obviously, how long was that? 30 years ago, do you know what I mean? So it's a while ago anyway. People change, it's quite obvious. But I think listening to the music, it doesn't affect how I listen to it. I think it affects how I listen to his new stuff, because I think yeah, I'm not getting excited about listening to his new albums. I don't know about you, but
yeah.
I don't feel anywhere near the same as even you are the Quarry, which I think was brilliant. Like, come back for him after like being not writing anything for 7 years and coming back. But I think since then it's been very track here, track there sort of thing, and then it's been these mad interviews that he's doing in between them that are just. The whole gig thing for me. I had tickets to go watch him a couple of years ago at Castlefield Bowl, and due to the protest of these fans and stuff like that, that was going to be taking place before the gig, he had to cancel. And he, other than doing that one gig in Leeds, he's not touched like the North at all with Manchester or Liverpool or anything. So it's strange how things are going for him. I think in South America he's still very loved. And obviously in the United States of America he's very loved as well. But I think here people are a bit. I think he has lost a few fans who have absolutely adored him by what he's saying now, because it is hard to agree with any of his opinions and understand why he's saying these things.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a fair comment, that his old stuff, the Smith stuff, you can kind of still look at it kind of in a vacuum to say, okay, Morrissey at this time he was very right on, and then look at his stuff now in a vacuum as well. And a lot of people, and I think you're one of them, you kind of separate Morrissey now from the Smiths, don't you? You don't really see it as the same person anymore.
Even his personality, though, I felt like when he was interviewed back in the Smiths and stuff, if you ever watch any old footages, it was quite fun and like charming in a way. Do you know what I mean? How he'd be interviewed. Whereas you look at him now and he's kind of like a caricature version of himself. Do you know, this whole everyone describes him as this miserable man. He's kind of become this miserable man, hasn't he?
Yeah, like life imitates art in that aspect. Yeah, I completely agree with you. But yeah, so you mentioned that you had tickets to go see him at Castlefield Ball. Have you ever seen him live, or was that the only chance you had?
I've not had a lot of luck. I'm not gonna lie. I watched him live a couple of years before at Manchester, which was a really good gig. He did a lot of his newer stuff, which was a bit disappointing, because you get excited because you see some of the gigs that he does, and he might do like 6 Smith songs,
Yeah.
and then other times you'll go watching him and he'll do 2, and you'll be like, oh, okay. I mean, it's his art, it's his choice, isn't it? He's got a lot of studio albums himself. He doesn't need to do a lot of Smith songs, and I'm fine because I do like a lot of his solo stuff. But then the time before that, which was when I was 14, the very first time I was going watching Morrissey, very excited. Me and my dad went. We was at the gig in Liverpool, and I don't know if you remember what happened at this gig.
I don't know what happened.
So basically, he did this charming band, started the set with brilliant. You're all excited, you're ready, and you can watch these clips online. It's crazy. He's in his second song in, literally in the gig, gets about 30 seconds in, someone chucks a plastic cup at him. And he literally, the audience kind of not laugh,
Oh,
but like,
no.
oh god, you can hear the whole crowd just being like, oh right, what's
Yeah, like
happening
the
there?
air
And
sucked out of the room.
yeah, and then he just went goodbye, everyone, walked off stage, and we was all stood there thinking, he's going to come back on in like 5-10 minutes or whatever, and the next minute's just an announcement that gig's gone, and he's not played Liverpool since then.
Wow. Well, I think you might have cursed him actually because he's not played Liverpool since then. And he's not played Manchester since the Castlefield Ball incident. So anytime you get tickets, I kind of feel like you scared him off. And yeah, you're right. Leeds seems to be
Yeah,
the
it
closest
could be
place in
me,
play.
couldn't it? We could maybe think some crazy super fan. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think you just cursed, mate. You just cursed. But yeah. So what about Johnny Marr? Have you seen Johnny Marr live?
Yeah, I've seen Johnny Marr a couple of times actually. He's good. I mean, I really liked him when he was in the Cribs. When he did that
Yeah.
album with them, Ignore the Ignorant. I think a lot of that album you could really kind of even the album title, which is very different for the Cribs, and I know a lot of like hardcore Cribs fans didn't actually like it when Johnny Marr joined, but Johnny Marr joining got me into the Cribs, and it was the reason I started listening
Yeah.
to him. Like, I think he's still a brilliant guitarist. I think obviously. I think they're a perfect match, Morrissey Marr, in terms of music and lyrics, aren't they? And I think one without the other does occasionally suffer. I think Morrissey maybe can get away with it a bit more with some of his songs, but you can still see in Morrissey's early stuff, whoever's playing the music are very much trying to recreate Johnny Marr riffs and Johnny Marr music, aren't they?
Yeah, I think there definitely is an element of that. But yeah.
I think with
I mean,
Johnny Marr's solo stuff, I'm not 100% sold that his lyrics are anywhere near in the same league, but whose are? Do you know what I mean?
true. Did you hear that song that he had a song a couple of years ago called Hi Hello? And I heard it on the radio when I was in the car. And when I heard it, I was like, this sounds like the Smiths, but it's not the Smiths. Who is it? And it turned out to be Johnny Marr. And I was like, wow, he's kind of managed to like replicate that Smith sound on this one song. I don't know how many of his songs he's really managed to do that on, but Hi Hello, I thought he'd really done a good job on.
Yeah, no, that is a good song, and you're probably right there with that. But no, he's really good, and he's good live. Have you seen him live?
I have, yeah. I saw him. I think it was Tea in the Park. Well, the first ever festival I went to when I was about maybe 24-ish. Yeah, I saw Johnny Marr. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. He did There Is a Light That Never Goes Out. You know, did a couple of Smith songs and absolutely loved it. I saw Morrissey once as well. I saw him at Leeds because obviously he won't play Manchester or Liverpool because of you. But I thought honestly, it was kind of like a religious experience watching Morrissey live because even though he did only a couple Smith songs and he is how he is now, it was still wow. That's Morrissey on stage, and for that 2 hours or whatever it was, I could stand there and look at him and be like, wow,
Yeah,
that's
I'll
who I
tell you the
remember
one
from the
thing about with
Smiths.
Morrissey though. Like, I mean, the one time I did actually get to watch him do a full set is he's not lost anything on stage, as he does just fully give his all. Like it's the first gig he's ever done. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he is just you are in awe of him, aren't you? When you're watching him like perform, he is just like everything he's doing, swinging the microphone round, going down to the fans, shaking hands and stuff. He's just it's everything you'd want, isn't it? When you're watching him, and it does kind of make you wish that he was around when the Smiths were together as well.
Oh, definitely, and he's got that charisma as well, and he's just got that like magnetism and that X factor to use a popular phrase. But yeah, I definitely wish I was together when the Smiths are around, and that's one thing that I really feel like I missed out on. And they even
Yeah,
play like I went to Edge Hill University, and they actually played Edge Hill back in the day, and I always thought like, oh, not only did I miss out on that, but when I was at Edge Hill, they didn't have any bands come and play, and I just felt like I've missed out on a real era here where they could have bands like the Smiths performing in the Students' Union. What a great time that would have been to be alive.
yeah, definitely. There's an era there that's just like missed now, innit? Because the gig format's kind of changed as well, hasn't it? With a lot of venues shutting down and things, and I think with just being able to stream things online and stuff, it's kind of bands get big a lot quicker now, don't they? So I think they're already at the
Yeah,
arena point, probably on the first album or second album at least, aren't they?
yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, it's definitely changed in terms of bands' trajectories in their career and what points they get to. But nice. So you mentioned earlier on that like Morrissey and mine, like the Smiths, did inspire you. But like, how much of an inspiration do you reckon they were on you, like getting into a band and like picking up the guitar for the first time? Because you said you'd picked it up to learn There's Like That Never Goes Out. But beyond that,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think just from listening to the Smiths, you just kind of want to imitate the best you can in terms of for me musically. All I wanted to do was kind of learn when I was getting guitar lessons. It was like I want to do this Smith song, I want to do this, and probably too early on because he is such a good guitarist that I was never in the early days learning guitar be able to get away with trying to play in some of them riffs that he does. The good, unlike Oasis, where Noel Gallagher, probably in his own admission, isn't as good of a guitarist, and his like sequences for songs and stuff are a lot more simpler and straightforward. Whereas Johnny Marr, he's just, I think what makes him so special is that like he's just got a style, and I think it's impossible to imitate. And it sounds too obvious if you was going to do that, but because like you hear a riff, you know, and you just hear it and you think that's Johnny Marr playing. Like you could hear 10 seconds of it and you'd be like, that's Johnny Marr. I know it is. And like I think for me, it's probably finding my own style, but then trying to get the best bits that you can from, especially that even the bass lines from Andy Raw are just brilliant all the way across.
Yeah, it's interesting how you mentioned Noel Gallagher, because he said something that really like struck me a couple of years ago. I saw like a clip on YouTube, and he was saying like Johnny Marr is so good that not even Johnny Marr can play Johnny Marr's riffs. And like I've seen him in the studio try and pick away and like trying to like relearn his own riffs, and I thought that's quite an interesting point that he made.
Oh yeah, some of the stuff he did, because I mean, what you got to bear in mind in with the Smiths, which is quite crazy for a band, because normally, say if it was a 4-piece band, you single play guitar, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And obviously with the Smiths, it was just Johnny Marr on guitar. I know they had Craig Gannon come in later and play a lot of stuff, and Marr really appreciated that because he felt like he needed an extra guitarist for the gigs that they were doing, because he was recording so many layers of the guitar on the tracks when they were in the studio that it was kind of almost impossible to imitate on stage. But he still could kind of do it, if that makes sense. Like that's how good he was.
Yeah.
That he'd get away with it at least. But yeah, I could fully believe that he'd have no idea what he even did on some of the tracks, because you listen to some of the guitar parts, and like when I was having guitar lessons, and guitar teacher would be like, well, there's this bit of song, but at the same time they're doing that. You're like, oh, but how do I get that full sound? Like, you can't, because it's two guitars at the same time doing two different arpeggios, and it's no, he's one of them that he's just like, yeah. I think I seen somewhere that for This Charming Man, the actual recording of it, it's actually he recorded it slightly out of tune, so you'll never get that exact sound that he had for This Charming Man again, like just never.
Right, that's interesting stuff that I didn't really know that stuff. But so, what do you think of the other albums then? We talked in depth about The Queen Is Dead, but what do you think about the Smiths and Meet Is Murder and Strange Ways Here We Come?
Well, I kind of, depending what mood I'm in, have my preference for which one's my favourite. It does change quite often. I think at the moment, Strange Ways is probably my favourite, but then I was just listening to Meet His Murder the other day, and that's just so good. And I think like what I like about that is it's quite raw, whereas I think the first Smiths album's a bit underproduced. You know, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
I feel
definitely,
like
I agree.
there's
Yeah,
bits missing, and you know when you go to like Hatful of Hollow and stuff, and they've done re-recordings of things, you think, I wonder why. Do you know what I mean? So I think, yeah, I love Meet His Murder. I love that they did that them home themselves, and I love how it kind of feels, you know, a bit like country western sort of. Like it sounds like you're on a train the whole journey through it. But no, like, what's your opinions on it? Do you prefer any others?
I think my favourite, all in all, would be Strange Ways Here We Come. I think they ended at the high point. I think the longer they went, they got better and better. And you made a good point about the Smiths, the debut album, the self-titled, the eponymous album. It is a bit underproduced, and it just does feel a bit more rough. Whereas, like, as we get through the albums, it just gets better and better and better for me.
Yeah, and I think what I like about Strange Ways is the complete opposite of the first Smiths album, is that I think the production is just crazily good on that album. I think they've got everything right, and I think both Morrissey and Marr have said that, ironically, considering the split up, that was the happiest point they had in the Smiths recording that album. So it's interesting, you know, especially seeing as they split up after that they think that was their best recording.
And on what could have been, imagine if they'd done a fifth album and they came back. I think it would have been even better and even better, because they do seem to me to be a band that just got better and better every time. But I think someone else mentioned this at some point, but they said that like there's no bad Smith song. Every single thing they ever did, even the demos, they're all good songs. They never wrote a bad song, and that's a really, really, really testament to how strong and band they were.
I think that's what me and my friend was talking about this. He's a massive kind of Stone Roses fan, and I'm a big Smiths fan, and he always said, "Oh, the Stone Roses are better." But then when he finally sort of sat down and listened to all the Smiths songs, he was like, because bear in mind, the Stone Roses have got a pretty consistent song selection. You'll struggle to find a bad Stone Roses song as well. But you then think you times that by 2 for the amount of songs that they've got, and you think, well, Jesus, like 99% success rate probably in each tune, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. But then you look at the Smiths. We mentioned the main albums, but then you've got the compilation album, Hatful of Hollow, which I think is an absolutely brilliant album. I mean, obviously it's a compilation, but still, I think that is such a great album.
You've got songs on there that are some of my favourite, like Rubber Ring and things like that, are just brilliant, aren't they? And Stretch Out and Wait, like I love Stretch Out and Wait. It's probably one of my favourites.
And they've got some of the more mainstream hits on there, like, Hand in Glove, How Soon Is Now, This Charming Man, Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want. Just, such a great, great album, that.
Yeah, consistency level is just crazy, isn't it? And I think it just shows the partnership that Morrissey and Ma had, that they just write such good songs that, like, there was no kind of a song where you sit there and think, I'm not too sure on this. It just isn't with the Smiths, is there?
There's not. Here's a good question for you then. Morrissey or Ma?
Like picking your favourite kids, isn't it? I don't know. I think I've got to say Morrissey, because I think that's what first attracted me to the Smiths, and think I think his charisma, his lyrics. I think that very much is the Smiths. I think Ma, although he was a great guitarist, I think Morrissey could still have been successful without Ma. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you as well. Personally, I've got to go with Morrissey as well. I've got to completely go with Morrissey because, yeah, even if you did take away all the music side of the music, you just had the lyrics and the singing. I think Morrissey's just so strong, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just one of them. He's an icon, isn't he, for musicians, and especially for like what you'd probably class as the indie music. He's like, if Paul Weller's like the mod father, he's got to be like the indie father, hasn't he?
Definitely. And all in all, then, gun to your head, what is your favourite Smiths song?
I don't know. Even if I can answer that, I would probably have to say my favourite at the moment is between. I'll let you pick out the two. I'm going to say it's probably between Headmaster's Ritual and A Rush and a Push.
Oh, that is tough. That is a very tough choice. That is a very tough choice.
What's your favourite?
I was thinking about this before, actually. I mean, it's so hard. There is like The Never Goes Out. It's just such a perfect song.
Yeah.
But then, like, I don't know. I think my favourite might be Death of a Disco Dancer. But I also like Paint a Vulgar Picture. There's just this is like choosing your favourite kid, isn't it?
And then we've got Still Ill. We've got What Difference Does It Make?
I know. It's just. I mean, we would literally be here all day if we were to go over them all, but it is so strong. I think gun to head, I'm going to have to just say Death of a Disco Dancer. Again, two things that just completely conflict each other. You think of disco dancing, you think of death. It's two different sides of the way different coins, and like he's put them together and he's made this song, and well, they've made this song and it's fantastic. But yeah, all in all, then, if we're going to rate The Queen Is Dead out of 10, what score are you giving it?
Oh, it's got to be a 10, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I'm gonna go straight 10 out of 10. But yeah, cheers for joining me today, Sam. Before you go,
thanks for having me, Adam.
Is there anything you want to plug?
No, I think we've covered everything relatively in depth. I think we can both agree that they probably are one of the best bands of all time, aren't they? In my opinion, the best. I think. I don't think there's much you can argue with it, really. But no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I've got to agree with you. For me, greatest band of all time. They joint with the Stone Roses for me. If I've got a tape, one is side A, one is side B, and they're both on there. But yeah, no, cheers for coming on. Everyone, go check out Sam's band and Knox. They're on all the social media platforms. Cheers for coming on, and we'll be back soon with another episode.
Cheers. Yep.